Let's get started with strawberry and rhubarb and why strawberry and rhubarb. A classic combination. Rhubarb being a very, very tart fruit, sometimes called pie fruit, because it usually requires quite a bit of sugar to make it edible. In my mind, it does not necessarily have to be all about pies. However, I like to do a lot of rhubarb compotes, rhubarb chutneys, and do more of a savory application with them. For today, though, we are going to sweeten it up, and that's why I like to use rhubarb in combination with strawberries. Strawberries are naturally sweet, work beautifully with the flavors of the rhubarb. The sugars in the strawberry, with the addition of the white sugar and the brown sugar we're going to add to the filling, will give us a nice, not too sweet, not too tart filling for a pie or a compote. The filling that I'm going to put together for the pie, you could easily turn that into a compote without putting it inside the actual pastry crust. Use it for a number of different things on its own. When you're selecting rhubarb, I have two stalks out here that I wanted to show you all, stalks that I look for. Thin, small stalks. Look for mainly red. Try to avoid a lot of green. The biggest issue with the thin stalk is texture. If the stalk is really thick, it tends to be a little more fibrous, and you're going to get a lot more chew in your rhubarb, those strings of fiber that just don't break down. Look for thin stalks. They're going to break down and give us a nice mouthfeel. And also, if the rhubarb is red, it's probably going to have a little more sugar versus the all-green rhubarb. So again, look for thin, crisp stalks that are mainly red. With strawberries, I know a lot of you are growing your own strawberries right now, and you're probably producing strawberries that are this size and smaller. When I'm buying strawberries in the store, at the market, it's what I look for. Are strawberries this size or smaller? Look for red strawberries. First thing I actually do is use my nose. If it smells like strawberry, it's probably going to taste like strawberry. If it doesn't smell like anything, it's not going to taste like anything. So what we'll do is cut into the strawberry to determine what we actually have to trim. This strawberry has quite a bit of white in the core. So you can do what is called hulling a strawberry, meaning you're going to take a small knife and cut a little well to cut out all of that white, leaving just the red below. So this strawberry has now been hulled. For a pie, however, I usually just take the top off and use the entire thing. Because we are adding quite a bit of sugar to this, I don't mind using the white or the less sweet portion of the strawberry, so I'm just trimming the top right off and using all the strawberry left below. You can quarter your strawberries, you can slice them, break them down a little bit. You don't need to go crazy though. They're going to break down in the pie. For the rhubarb, trim any leaves, any top portion that you have on the rhubarb. I've already trimmed this off. And then this is as simple as breaking it down into small pieces. Make sure your rhubarb is pretty small. Because I talked about it being pretty fibrous, you want to make sure you're breaking it down so you don't have a stringy pie filling. So as you can see, I have about 5.5 to 6 cups of strawberry and rhubarb. If you happen to be using frozen fruit, it's not quite strawberry season, it's absolutely fine to use frozen fruits for pie. Just use them from a frozen state. Don't bring them out, let them thaw, and then make your pie filling. Use them straight from frozen. You'll have much less water that way. What we're going to add to this now for a pie filling is a little bit of white sugar and a little bit of brown sugar. You can add as much or as little sugar as you like to your pie. Think about the fruit that you're using. If it's an incredibly sweet fruit, berries that are sweet, things like that. Apples tend to be a little sweeter. You don't need to use quite as much sugar. In this case, because we're using rhubarb, I have about 1.5 cups total of sugar. I like mixing white sugar with brown sugar for the flavor, the complexity in the brown sugar. I'm also going to add a little bit of vanilla extract. I add that into all of my pie fillings regardless of the fruit. I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon. Make sure any of the spices that you're using are fresh spices. And I'm also going to do a little bit of freshly grated nutmeg. I always grate my own nutmeg. Stays a lot more fresh in your pantry this way. Have one of these handy little microplanes in your kitchen, and you'll be much happier with the result if you use fresh nutmeg that you're going to grate right before you use it. Just a little bit. I don't want the spices to overpower the flavor of the strawberries and the rhubarb. And then I'm also going to throw in a little bit of lemon zest. You could throw in lemon juice. I try to pay attention to the amount of liquid I'm adding to my pie fillings because pie fillings, as many of you know, can just have a little too much water and they never quite set up. So instead of the juice, I'm just adding the lemon zest, which is just the color on the outside of the lemon. I'm not going below that yellow to the white. That's called pith, and it's very bitter. So I want to avoid the pith and just go for the zest or all the essential oils on the outside. So I'm going to mix this all together. And the last thing I'm going to add into this is some type of thickening agent. Because this fruit is going to produce a lot of water as it starts to cook, I want something in the pie to help bind it so it just doesn't gush out when you cut into it. So I like to use flour. A lot of people use cornstarch. I'm not a fan of cornstarch unless I absolutely have to use it. I don't use it. So what I'm going to do is give it about 2 heaping tablespoons of just all-purpose flour. And as this begins to cook and we get a lot of the water coming out of the pie, the flour is going to help us with that and hold things together. Before I added the flour to this filling, you could easily throw it on the stove in a little saucepan and give it a cook. Just let the fruit start to cook down, let some of the water come out of the fruit, and you have a compote. That compote could be used. You could put it on top of a piece of grilled fish. It's lovely with something like grilled pork. Any animal protein that you're going to be pulling off the grill in the summertime. Think about a nice sweet complement in the form of a compote, and then you get that nice savory sweet, which I really love in the summertime. This, however, because I added the flour, is now ready for our pie. And I will move on and show you how to make a really basic, what is called pâte brisée or pie crust next.